Former senator and former governor of Indiana, Evan Bayh, currently the co-chair of the organization No Labels. My friend Brendan Greeley, editor of the economic newsletter All We Know So Far, and CNBC contributors this morning, Dan Nathan, principal of Risk Reversal, and Ron Insana. Dan, I go to you first. What do you make of this?
So, you know, the good cop, bad cop thing, the problem is there's a lot more bad cops out there right now telling this narrative. And that's really, to me, I think the problem is, I think there's very little debate that we need to be tougher with China about trade. I think it's the process right now. And so when you think about what's going on just in the last couple of weeks with the narrative around this negotiation is that they're sending guys out like Pete Navarro to kind of with the talking points, and the market doesn't like it. The market does not like all of this back and forth between the tamp down sort of thing. And listen, when you think about Larry Kudlow going in there now to be that kind of good cop, well, that's what Gary Cohn was also meant to do. And Gary Cohn's gone now because the president didn't listen to. So when I think about Pete Navarro, you know, he's kind of like to economics as like Scott Pruitt is to science for all intents and purposes, you know. And so I think they just have a real problem on the messaging front here, and they're sending their worst people out there to tell a story the markets do not like.
If we wanted to get tough on China, wouldn't the answer stay in TPP, work with a number of other countries to put pressure on China, because China deserves that pressure?
I think this is my problem with the good cop, bad cop metaphor, which is that the bad cop story keeps changing, right? We had this investigation on whether state support for steel and overcapacity in China was a security risk for the U.S., right? And then we shifted to a different investigation on whether they were doing state support for other enterprises, right? So we're saying different things about China. There is a story to be told about Chinese theft of intellectual property. There is a story to be told about Chinese overcapacity in steel, right? But what we need to be doing is working with all of the other countries that trade with China to figure out how we together work on this. The one thing that I will give Peter Navarro credit for, and Donald Trump also, is that, you know, I do wish that anyone else were conducting this negotiation on our behalf. But I wish that any other politician before Donald Trump had made this as much of a priority. It is now too late to fix some things that we should have been thinking about in 2010, 2005.
Excellent point. Senator, in an op-ed, you think that Trump should stay the course and not cower to China's bullying. What do you mean?
That had to do with steel and aluminum, Stephanie, where there really have been inappropriate trade practices by the Chinese and others for some time. But we've now gone way beyond that. And what's curious to me is we put ourselves, rather than dealing from a position of strength, as was said, we put ourselves in a position of weakness. Strategically, the way to go about this would have been to enter TPP, to gather our allies, our trading partners in Asia, to all go to the Chinese and say, look, you got to stop this intellectual property theft. It's rampant. Instead, we back out of TPP, we drive them into the arms of the Chinese, and then we pick a fight with the Chinese. It really makes no sense. The other curious thing is the timing. Here we may be going into a high-stakes negotiation with the North Koreans over their nuclear program. The Chinese hopefully can be instrumental in pressuring the North Koreans to come to the table and to do the right thing, and instead we pick a fight with the Chinese. So both the timing and the way that this has gone about reflect, I think, a president who's thinking tactically or living in the moment rather than thinking strategically how best to accomplish our goals in the long run.
Ron Insana, China holds more than $1 trillion of U.S. debt. Essentially, they're our banker. Don't they have a lot more leverage over us than we realize, or maybe the president realizes?
They do, and it is a low probability event that they would dump U.S. treasuries because it's the economic equivalent of mutually assured destruction. However, having said that, China has come out and said they will fight us to the end on this trade war, which they now expect to win. All they have to do is stop buying U.S. treasuries. We're buying $1 trillion this year. The Fed is not buying treasuries as it has over the last many years. So there are fewer natural buyers for U.S. bonds. It's not a question of whether or not the Chinese buy. It's at what rate. And if those rates go up, our debt service goes up. If those rates go up, housing gets more expensive. If those rates go up and the dollar comes down, you could have a severe economic dislocation, not to mention impact on global economic growth, which to date has been strong. This is very high risk.
Should the markets move this quickly? These are just threats. Well, the president hasn't actually done anything in order to do so.
I don't necessarily agree that they're just threats. We don't know what they are. Right? From one day to the next, he's coming out and making policy statements. In the old days,
but show me when that guy actually pulls the trigger.
I understand that,
but there hasn't been a clear strategy, right? There has been a general frustration with China's strategy that is somewhat justified, but there hasn't been a clear strategy for the last year and a half on how we're going to go about doing it. I agree with Ron. I think there's a real problem with Chinese holding of U.S. debt, but I'm I'm actually slightly more worried than you are about it, which is that when they announced, just as a trial balloon, China said, we're considering stopping buying U.S. debt.
That's true, just a couple weeks ago, Dan.
Well, listen, to me, the risk right now is you're saying that these are just threats. What does it do to corporate confidence? You know, we just had this tax bill, and we went into 2018, and by all accounts, it looked like the C-suite was pretty bullish, right, on the global outlook, that sort of thing. What are we going to hear when we hear Q1 earnings reports over the next few weeks about their own outlook, their own visibility to their business? What are the costs of inputs? Are they moving up because people are worried about these sorts of fears? So to me, and then, guys, don't forget, I mean, our GDP is what, 2/3 consumer spending. We've seen some weak retail sales in the last couple of months. We've seen
today's
a tick down.
report.
Yep. So to me, this all has the ability to really hurt psychology of the U.S.
And there is a real world response. A friend of mine from high school who runs an industrial welding company and has very large customers. His steel prices, his inputs have literally gone up 30%.
To that exact point, President Trump tweeted this morning, despite the aluminum tariffs, aluminum prices are down 4%. People are surprised. I'm not. Lots of money coming into the U.S. coffers and jobs, jobs, jobs. Okie doke. The price of Midwest premium aluminum has doubled since January in anticipation of tariffs. We then saw it slightly drop in mid-March because of the country exemptions. How dangerous is it that the person who's negotiating this has his facts day in and day out wrong? And the person I'm talking about, Mr. President, is you.
Well, obviously, it's not an ideal situation when the ultimate decision maker doesn't have all the facts and may not be interested in getting all the facts.
But it's not just doesn't have all the facts. He is telling the 40+ million people who follow him things that are wrong. They're lies.
Well, it reminds me of the old Groucho Marx line, which is, who are you going to believe? Me or your own eyes? Ultimately, people believe their own eyes. And the point I was going to make, Stephanie, is we got an election coming up in November. 5 of the key Senate races, which used to be my place of employment, are in red state America, where President Trump ran very strong, big agricultural sector. And so if the ag economy, soybeans, pork producers, corn, really starts getting hit, some of those folks may say, you know what, maybe we need some checks and balances in Washington. Maybe we need some restraints on these kind of policies. It could have a real effect in some of those key races come November.
Well, we're already hearing from it. I mean, last night, Ben Sasse was almost the first one to come out and say, hold your horses. So we can see cable news commentators say anyone who's against these tariffs doesn't care about America, doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm pretty sure Ben Sasse, Orrin Hatch, and last I checked, Larry Kudlow do sort of know about this.
But to Ben Sasse's constituents, farmers are already thinking about changing production. We've been talking about, do markets move on threats or do they move on actions? Markets move on uncertainty.
There you go.
Right, so we've created this uncertainty. If farmers have to figure out how to hedge this right now, because that's what you have to do if you need to figure out what to plant for next season.
But to that exact point, you did not see CEOs spend, even though they had massive amounts of money on their balance sheet during the Obama administration, because they were worried about the regulatory overhang. They're now spending because they're saying it's deregulation time, it's tax cut time. Will that change now that they're dealing with a skittish president?
Well, I think so. I mean, listen, you know, the jobs report today kind of highlights the fact of just how tenuous the situation is when you think about exporters, right, to China. If then all of a sudden they're going to have less demand for their products, then they're not going to be hiring. And I think it's really important.
Or make those capital investments.
Or make and you know, I don't know if you guys listened to the New York Times, The Daily. Yesterday, they interviewed a farmer who voted for Donald Trump in Illinois, and he's really worried. You know what percent of his crop of soybeans and corn goes to China? He said between 70 and 90%. That's a massive issue here. So, like, that constituency is already starting to think twice about the worst case scenario of their vote from 2016.
When people watch President Trump lead a roundtable on tax reform and he starts with this, that's not entertainment. It's concerning. It's concerning for people. Apologies.
Yes. But it points to the larger problem that I would even go so far to mildly disagree with the good senator that this is not even tactical. This is not thought out in any way, shape, or form. We have a dispute settlement mechanism within the World Trade Organization that should be addressed first. We have a variety of means to engage the Chinese, even if it's not to the president's liking, to go about a process that ultimately could lead to us imposing tariffs, but in a rational way.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.